Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right, hello my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 461 of the Health Detective Podcast. And if you're on the video side and you're wondering how the heck did we jump from 459 to 461, no, this is not just Ev when he forgets the episode number and screws it up. That is a very common theme on this podcast. But thankfully, that is not what happened today. What actually happened this morning is at 9 o'clock in the morning Central Time, I was able to record our first ever in-person podcast studio interview with the great Molly Eastman. If you guys don't know her, she was on the podcast a couple of years ago now, and her brand is called Sleep is a Skill. So her and her husband actually work very closely together on various things with poker players, and they help their sleep and the psychology behind it because her husband was a professor of psychology at one point. Two just brilliant individuals, really cool story, and you get to learn a lot about sleep. We talked about wearables. We talked about how certain substances like THC, benzodiazepines are actually affecting people's sleep negatively, even though they're commonly used for those things. So we're really looking forward to releasing that for you guys. That one is going to be done as a video. So whenever we do these live podcasts, they're saved automatically as live videos. So what that means is if you were to go to our channel right now, this doesn't show up on the video section. It always shows up on the live section. So that's how you can see all the podcasts that we've ever done live, which is about 2 years worth of them now, which is really cool. But Molly's will come out on video, and every subsequent in-person podcast that we do will also come out on the video side. So please make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel so that you actually get notified that the video came out. Otherwise, I'm not sure how you would know it happened. So make sure you're subscribed, and we're looking forward to getting that out to you guys within the next 2 weeks here. One thing I do have to shout out, because I will not be doing podcasts next week, October 20th through 23rd. And that is because we have our third ever Holistic Health Week. And this time we changed it up a little bit. So maybe you've been a part of our Holistic Health Weeks in the past. Maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about. Well, you can use context clues, right? So Holistic Health Week means we just spend basically an entire week on various aspects of holistic health. And how we changed this one this time is in a way I actually really like, because the second one we had 30 sessions in 1 week, and I hosted them all. And while very fun, that was also very exhausting. So we changed it up a little bit this time, and we're doing around 12 case studies instead. So we'll be live for about 4.5 to 6 hours still each day, Monday through Thursday of next week, October 20th through the 23rd, like I said. And the event is completely free. It's fdntraining.com/HHW 25 HDP. That's fdntraining.com/HHW 25 HDP. That'll get you a free ticket to the event. We are covering just about everything that you can imagine, from autoimmune illness, breast implant illness, weight loss resistance, dementia. I think we have some people talking about cancer. I know for a fact we have people talking about gut issues and mental health issues. Probably the most interesting one to me, just because this is something we never get to talk about. We actually have an individual who's speaking next week that works with parents who have children who have Down syndrome. And then you say, well, what can functional medicine do for Down syndrome? That's a genetic condition. I thought the same thing. What I did not know is all these comorbid issues that people have if they do have Down syndrome. They're also at higher risk for certain diseases. So that's what this individual focuses on. They help individuals who do have genetic diseases, unfortunately, have way better quality of life. So you will get the full gamut of stuff next week. And again, you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want to attend. So even if you only get to choose one, it's great, or only want to attend one, rather, it's great. That's fdntraining.com/HHW 25 HDP. We will see you there. And now let's get to our guest today. She's got an impressive bio. So like every guest, I will read her full bio and then we will chat with her. Jane Velasco brings over 23 years of experience in the fitness and health industry. With a strong academic background in kinesiology and a specialization in sports medicine, Jane began her professional journey as a passionate personal trainer. She went on to establish and run a thriving personal training facility in the Los Angeles area, where she helped hundreds of clients transform their health and vitality. In 2019, Jane's own health began to decline. She experienced persistent joint pain, debilitating fatigue, insomnia, and unexplained weight gain, despite maintaining an active lifestyle. Even after intense workouts like CrossFit, she felt completely drained, which was deeply discouraging for someone who had always been energetic and fit. Seeking answers, Jane consulted with primary care physicians, OBGYNs, and endocrinologists. Yet despite her worsening symptoms, her lab work consistently came back normal. She was told this was all just part of aging, but deep down, she knew that there had to be more to the story. Refusing to accept that feeling unwell was simply her new normal, she began to explore the root cause approach of functional health, and encouraged by her business coach, an FDN practitioner, Jane enrolled in the FDN program. This decision changed everything for her, and through her training, she discovered she was suffering from stage 3 HPA axis dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, high histamine levels, systemic inflammation, immune dysregulation, and leaky gut. Jane became her own first client by applying what she learned in FDN, and she healed her body from the inside out. Today, Jane is thriving, free from joint pain, sleeping deeply, 40 pounds lighter, and full of energy. And her personal healing journey now fuels her professional mission to help other women uncover the root causes of their health struggles and reclaim their vitality. Awesome bio, awesome way to get this started. Jane, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward. Very excited.
All right, well, you're putting me on the spot. I'm going to have to modify my first question for you a little bit, because I normally ask, what were your first health symptoms and what did they look like? You not only told us what they look like, you even said that they started in 2019. So I have a follow-up question for you right away, because what you went through, even though the symptoms are unique, is actually something that's very conceptually similar. I've probably interviewed about 20 to 25 people like you, and here's what I mean. They're individuals that are very interested in the fitness side of things, and usually when someone's interested in that, they eat better than the average person, or at least what they see to be the average person. And then when you guys get these health symptoms, it's like the most shocking people to get them, because you're living better than most people. So my follow-up question for you is not what health symptoms did you have? We already talked about that. Rather, when this first happened to you, what was going through your mind emotionally and mentally? Because I'm sure, again, it had to be kind of a big shock, since you live this healthy life, supposedly, and now you're dealing with these symptoms. So what was going through your head at the time?
Well, I thought the first thing that popped in my head was like, like, do I have an autoimmune disease? Because my knees were swollen, my feet were constantly swollen. It was hard to go up and down the stairs. And I was just in constant pain. And of course, I went to a rabbit hole researching what could go wrong. And when I get my blood work and my C-reactive protein was normal, I was like, I don't understand. I have inflammation. I don't know where it's coming from. And of course, the first thing that popped in my head was like, what if I have rheumatoid arthritis? So my mind started spinning. I'm like, of course, my body sensed it's a threat. And after that, I was just like, where can I find a solution? And I just keep like looking for different books, different podcasts, and try different things. And at the end, I was just starting to find, before I went to FDN, I just started finding my own little protocols, doing this and doing that. And in contrast, that made my symptoms worse. I was like, okay, that's not working for me, because I'm worse, because my insomnia got worse. I'm like, I don't understand. And then I noticed also when I go in the sauna, I can't stay too long, because I start having this blotchy red, and come to find out that was all histamine. And so after that, I kept looking for, it was just all blood work. I would just spend all my money just finding different blood works to see what can I find, where can I find answers. And all answers says it's just part of aging. And it's like, this can't be it. And I just felt horrible, because mentally, it's a reflection of my body when you supposedly, like when clients see, it's like, oh, what's happening? Like why you're gaining weight and why you're tired all the time. And I would constantly would take a nap. I would block off my time in the afternoon, and I would just take naps, because I was just that exhausted. And after that, fighting it, I finally said, you know what? this is not working. So I just slowly start backing off on things. And then the eating part, I was doing intermittent fasting because like, oh, intermittent fasting is great. And I did the bulletproof diet. Look, everything just went down the drain. And I just said, you know what? I took some time to really understand what was going on. And so before I entered FDN, Paul Reed talks about Paul Chek, and I actually went to the Chek Institute, and that's when I started understanding the mind body. And so I discovered Qigong, and that's when I started really calming down my nervous system more than anything. It's the nervous system and the mindset, and just learning to calm things down. And and then from there I started researching more other things.
I'm guessing you sound like a research-oriented person to begin with, because the fact that you even knew what autoimmune conditions were or rheumatoid arthritis, like not many people, as you know, until they get into this space, even know what that is. So you already had some familiarity with different.
Yeah, because when I work with clients, I sold my business back in 2020 in LA, and I've had like hundreds of clients coming in with certain conditions and autoimmune disease. And doctors would say, oh, just don't do this and take this medication. But most of my clients like, I don't want to keep taking medication. There's got to be other solutions. So I want to help them get better. So I start going in this rabbit hole and start researching and just helping them. And it's interesting because most of my clients will give their blood work to me and read it for them to see what was going on, because the doctor only have 15 minutes. Like, oh, here's your cholesterol medication. This is all you need. But they don't give detailed information. And so I just self-taught. I just like to help people.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you got more than you bargained for when it happened to yourself. I love getting to interview you at this point, though, when you're already feeling better, because it's kind of cool. I mean, what better person to help these individuals than someone who not only researches it, but someone who actually went through it themselves in some way. I have to ask, were you the luckiest person in the world and sold your business before COVID, or did you sell it as a result of COVID?
It was a result of COVID.
Okay, so, I figured, but I heard one story of someone selling something in February 2020. I'm like, you either had insider information or you were the luckiest person.
Yeah.
They sold their thing in February 2020. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I sold mine in October 2020. And the challenging part, because I was recently married and I was living in Japan. So I was going back and forth, Japan, LA. So I had staff in my personal training. I had a manager, so managing it. Well, I was doing a few online clients in Japan. So with the whole time and the stress, and most of my clienteles are the 55 and over crowd. And so when the news had said that, everybody has to stay home, the technology is just like, what are we going to do? And so eventually the business got affected by it. And so my health started getting worse and worse, that I couldn't do it anymore. And so I decided to sell. And, sad to let go. I was really heartbroken that I had to let go of all my clients. But at the same time, I was dying inside. I just could not do anything anymore. So
I got you. Yeah, well, I'm glad you were able to sell it at that time. That it sounds like a tough business to sell, especially in California during COVID. My mom ended up ironically selling her restaurant business 15 years in 2021. Now, I think that's actually a testament to how both high quality entrepreneurs you both are, because the reason hers was able to sell is because people saw that she survived during COVID, and they're like, oh my gosh, a restaurant that survives for over 10 years is already a good sign. If it could survive during COVID, we're golden. So it actually ended up being a good negotiating tool. Anyway,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, moving forward from that. So you talked about so far some of the things, obviously, that didn't work. You're doing these things that are preached by a bunch of people, the cold plunges, sauna. And I like that you brought that up, because I'm someone, I just literally yesterday, we moved purposely to a building in Austin that has a cold plunge and sauna in it. It's a part of the gym. It's worth a little extra money. So I just did sauna for 20 minutes yesterday at 200 degrees, and I went into cold plunge. Now, if I went back to when I was in high school, when I was my sickest, I'll never forget, we would all of my high school friends, we'd go into the weight room at the YMCA. The YMCA was right across from the school. And then, of course, all the guys, it was almost like a cool thing to do back then, go in the sauna. Like, that's what the adults did. So when they would go in, they could go sit there for 15, 20 minutes, no problem. It was almost a stupid competition of who could stay in longer. I will never forget, I would walk in and within 30 seconds, I was so overwhelmed by that heat. And I don't just mean like the initial shock that comes. Obviously, that happens to everyone. It felt like I couldn't breathe. It just overwhelmed my body. So I'd always have to leave. So we're not saying, sauna, cold plunge, any of that stuff's necessarily bad, but it's usually being used way too early by people. So all that stuff wasn't working for you. What were some of the first things that did work for you?
Breath work. That was the main thing, was the breath work. So when I wake up in the morning, I go straight outside and I start doing Qigong. And the movement of Qigong is really simple. It's to really just calm the whole nervous system. And when I work with my own breath work, the first 5 minutes felt like eternity. And, people say, oh, this monkey brain just won't stop and I can't meditate. I'm like, I've been labeled as ADHD and supposedly I can't sit still and be still, but it took practice. And so to me, my main of meditation is movement meditation. So I always couple my movement with my breath work. If you're moving faster than what you're breathing, that means you're moving too fast. So learning to do everything slowly was like probably the beginning of my healing journey, just because I have to really let go of the things that was causing all this noise in my mind. So when I started doing that, 2 minutes it felt like eternity. As days and weeks passed by, I was able to do 20 minutes of Qigong that it felt like I was floating. And it was just an amazing feeling. And I just want to keep doing that. And then I started doing, when I start to feel better, then I start walking. I take my dogs with me and we just go, okay, we're just going to walk for about a couple blocks and then go back home. And then it's just slowly. And knowing me,
Nice.
I'm that type of person that's all or nothing. I'm going to go all and do everything all right. But now I just learned to say, nope, slow down, just slow down.
I'm sorry if I didn't mean to cut you off. It lagged for a second on my end. So I was like, wow, I don't know why she just paused there. So I was just trying to fill the gap.
Sorry.
It was really for a second. It's going to be funny on the audio side if I didn't explain that. So that's why I did for a second.
No worries.
And I remember, you know what? It's probably, if I'm being honest, I think this is a message that keeps coming to me on the podcast that I need to get a little bit better again at calming the nervous system. And it sucks because I was actually good at that at one point. I had that as a habit. I went to a Buddhist monastery in my early 20s, and I was not good at sticking to what they were doing. It's so funny looking back because I wasn't able to register what was happening, but I could not stay with them all day. Like I'd literally go out to the car because there was a bunch of young people there. I'd go out to the car and I would sneak and leave for like half the day and go hiking because I could not sit still in the way that they were able to. And these guys, it's the Blue Cliff Monastery in New York. These guys and gals that dedicate their life to this, they do this for the rest of their life. There are people that live there for decades. It's crazy to me in like a cool way, but everything that they do has intention. They're speaking, they're teaching, when they're cooking, when they're cleaning the dishes, everything is always in this state of mindfulness. And it's kind of interesting because they know like some of those people there live till over 100 years old. And you're like, well, yeah, I can understand that. There's like no stress. They basically completely regulated the stress response and they live simply. It's not dangerously simple. It's not like they're living in huts or something. They have beautiful buildings, but everything is simple. There's not a lot of EMF. There's no screens. I wish I could have the desire to go fully into that because it's probably a simpler way to live. But either way, what I learned from them, though, even if it wasn't as proficient as them, is how to calm myself if I intentionally try. But I feel like, again, your message is one that keeps coming to me in some way or another on this podcast. So I think I need to get back to that because I used to do that 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. And if I'm being fully transparent, I don't do that at all anymore. I've allowed myself to get too busy. And I do use the keyword allow because it's a choice. And now it's like from the second I wake up, we go until the second I go to bed. And I'm already feeling the ramifications of that. That's not working so well.
It's true. I mean, I'm guilty of that. For a moment there, I would be like going. And then by the end of the day, I get really cranky. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, what happened? Like, oh, I didn't have my morning breath work. And I also do it at night. So I have a different breath work in the morning and I have a different breath work at nighttime that I do. And I'm very religious. I'm selfish with my nighttime routines. So And one of it is my breath work. If I don't do my breath work at night, it feels so incomplete now. So yeah, when I have mornings that's a little bit crazy and I'm just going like, okay, why am I getting cranky? Well, what happened? And that's because I missed my morning breath work.
Yes. So you said that was not only the first thing that you really did, it sounds like that's actually been one of the most important things too, which is awesome. But you also said that going through FDN was very helpful in what you did. So you found FDN from your coach, I believe.
Yeah.
And then when you went through FDN, for those that don't know, we actually include labs in the cost of tuition. We literally want you to be like Jane, where you are your first client so that you can walk the walk and have a deeper understanding of the system. So when you got your lab results back, I'm not expecting us to go over all of them, but what were some of the main things that you found on those labs?
My cortisol level, it was total cortisol was 0.2. I was like, I'm dying. I was like, I'm dying at 0.2. And, you see the range. I think, we use Fluids IQ and you see the range like, holy cow, I'm dying, and I was like, well, how do I do this? And, with the clinical advisor to give, your protocols, and that really helped a lot. And of course, the one thing that I learned in FDN was that our body is a smart body. It's a very innate that it will heal as long as you give what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's the first thing. And then when I saw that in my GI stool sample, like, oh, I barely have some good bacteria there. And yeah, guilty. Following the Western practice, I was on a few antibiotics in my past. And so my gut was just done. So yeah, so I had my digestive enzymes wasn't quite all there. And I'm going to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
I had my gallbladder removed in 2015.
Oh.
And I feel like that was like the trickled all the way down as fast forward to 2019. And I think that's where all it started happening, because my symptoms, I see my check engine line little by little, but the 2019 and on, that's when I started feeling all this symptoms that happened. So yeah.
Do you think it's possible to, you would know yourself better than me, of course, but I'm thinking, what was happening in your body that even led to you needing your gallbladder removed? So maybe obviously that surgery is probably a huge stress, but maybe some of the things that even led to that were just getting worse and worse up until 2019.
Yeah. So before that, I was having severe ovarian pain, 2014, 2015. And I told my doctor I'm having this ovarian pain. And they said, oh, here's a birth control pill that will help shrink it. And I said, okay, well, my body kept rejecting that birth control because I kept getting constant migraine. And then fast forward one night around, I think it was 2015, I started having this weird stomach pain. And I was having two pains, one in my right lower quadrant of my abdomen and one center, but the pain will travel in my back. I'm like, oh no, I think my gallbladder has kicked in and my gallstones. I have history of gallstones, but I know that it was the stress of running a business, because I was just running everything. I was busy from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Jeez.
And it's just the stress. And I noticed when I have the flare up, I noticed my gallbladder will have this issue. And then I started going into the rabbit hole, and I went to PubMed and I started researching, is there a correlation between birth control and gallbladder or gallstones? And there it was. So I went to see my GI doctor and I showed him the report, and he said, there's no correlation between birth control and your gallbladder. I'm like, but it says on PubMed it is that, and he disregarded it. And then my OBGYN said, oh, just keep taking the birth control. It'll help shrink it. But unfortunately, I ended up in the ER. My cyst grew to 5 centimeters. And I was having 2 issues that was going on. But my intuition kept saying, stop all this. So I cut off all those medications. After that, I started going to see my acupuncturist and start giving me herbs to calm everything down. Fast forward, my cyst shrank, and unfortunately, my gallbladder didn't make it through. So, of course, my GI doctor said, if you don't get your gallbladder removed, you're going to end up having infection because the stones might pass through the duct and you might die. I'm like, well, I don't want that to happen. And so,
of course.
and so, yeah, so I ended up having my gallbladder removed. And from there, the first year was rough just because doctor didn't tell me like, oh, you need to take ox bile salt to just help with breaking down fat and all that. Nothing. He said, oh, you can eat whatever you want. And so from there, I just doing my normal things, exercise, workout, and do what I do normally. And I think it finally caught on starting at 2019. And I think that's where it all started. And things happen for a reason. And the journey was rough, but I came out at the end that I'm doing much better now.
Awesome. I am asking this a little bit earlier than normal because I actually see quite a few of you on, which is amazing. We're glad to have you on a Friday afternoon with us. If you do have any questions for Jane, please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along here. One thing I wanted to go back to for a second, and it's only because I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's only because we haven't actually talked about this in a while. You in your bio actually mentioned that you were in what you called stage 3, or that exhaustive phase of HPA axis dysfunction. And again, we're not looking for a Reader Elizabeth level here, but for those that don't understand that HPA axis dysfunction thing, can we kind of explain, like, how do we look at that as FDNs, and what does that mean when you're in that low or bad of a phase?
So the HPA, there's 3 stages of the HPA dysfunction. First, our body, it goes in that homeostasis. Our body will always go back to balance. But with stress in our life, or whatever stress that a person's going through, there's stage 1, which is the acute phase. In the acute phase, you're still feeling like Superman or Superwoman. You can do anything. Your cortisol is through the roof. You can do anything. But the more you keep going on this stressful pattern for me, it was a stressful pattern of my life. I just keep going. And I was a people pleaser. Given the work that I do, I want people to feel good and be happy, but I forget about myself, and the self-care disappeared. So as stress levels keep going up, and the worry and everything else that was happening in my personal life, or just life in general, I kept pushing my body to the limit, kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And stage 2 will be compensatory, meaning you're starting to feel the symptoms. You see little things that you notice. Like the first thing I noticed for me was sleep. I would always wake up between 2 to 4 a.m. And it was rough because if I have to get up at 4:30 and I wake up at 3, it's like, what the heck am I going to do? So I just stay up because there's really no point. So and I just kept pushing. And then I started taking Aleve. I'm not sponsored by Aleve, but I'll start using Aleve just because to get me through my sleep and all my aches and pains that I started to feel. And so as the more we keep pushing our body and putting more toxin or stuff in our body just to help get us through the day, and not looking back like, what can I do to cut back on the stress, I kept pushing and pushing. And then my husband and I, we were dating, but he's across the country, Japan, so I would travel back and forth. So that was another stressor. And so at the end, with the time change and more stress coming in, my body was finally saying no. So that's when the stage 3 comes in. If you ignored all the stressors, all the check engine light, you keep going, then I ended up in stage 3, which is like almost close to death, but not literally. But that's when stage 3 is when your body is finally, you start having inflammations a lot higher. Your body will start gaining weight just because there's no more fuel into your system. My brain fog was the worst, and I kept pumping caffeine and espresso just because to get through the day. And so at the end, my body was just said, no more. And so that's when how we talked about earlier, when I had to sell my business, I guess things happen for a reason, just because at the end, my body's like, I can't do it anymore. I really can't. I mean, throughout the day, when my insomnia has gotten worse, I would wake up at 2, but don't go back to bed till 6 a.m. Then I wake up at 10 a.m. So it's just a really terrible pattern. And then when I started talking to my business coach, then he was an FDN, and he started guiding me on what I can do and what to do. And the first thing he said was that your liver is under a lot of stress, and you need to start doing breath work. And that's when I started following that pattern. So when I did when I went through FDN and I got my test result, like I think that was the thing, like, give me the result. I mean, I was studying all the modules, but I was like, is there a result? No yet. Oh, come on, give me the answers, give me the answers. I was just like eager. What is wrong with me? Just because doctors just said nothing was wrong, but I knew there was something wrong with me.
Yes.
And that's when I saw it. I was like, then I felt the relief, like, oh, okay, but I know I can heal, and I know I can get back to this, and I know I'm going to get better. So yeah, so there's 3 stages in HPA. So I was in HPA stage 3, hypothalamus pituitary adrenal dysfunction. So those 3 main organs, they all communicate. And it's very interesting just because what you set your mind into, your body will start absorbing that, and it creates stressors in our life, in your body, actually.
I got to give you huge props because I totally put you on the spot with that. You nailed it. Reed and Elizabeth are somewhere like, this is amazing. You are a great FDN practitioner. That is
Thank
for sure.
you. Do I get an A+?
A+ for sure. Well, and guys, and this is the thing. What's so tricky about the stages, I'm sorry that I don't have like a sheet in front of me, but if you were to look at it on a graph, we've went over this on the show before, but it was probably a year and a half ago at this point where we did do the graph and stuff. If you were looking at someone's like total cortisol, you'd basically see this is the normal range, right? This is where you want to be. It goes up, back down, and then plummets. Now, the issue is with that stage 2 or that compensatory phase that Jane was talking about, if you were to see the chart, you would notice, wait a second, the total cortisol sum could be the same there as it is when someone's healthy. Yes, and I literally believe that is one of the biggest reasons, unfortunately, people see a lot of the times, oh, my blood work looks normal. It's like, well, it actually does in a certain sense. Like if someone was just to measure your total cortisol without any other context or other lab markers, they would objectively say that, yes, it looks normal. So when is it not normal for us as FDNs? I'll give you a hint. When the person has symptoms, that's not normal. This is the issue with not Western medicine practitioners. Most of them are amazing people, as we always say on the show. But the Western medicine philosophy is they can be looking at an individual, a patient in front of them. They could see lab work that looks normal, but the patient's saying they feel like crap, and there's nothing they can do as a result of that. There is nothing that they can do now. Whereas an FDN practitioner, and this is also true for many health practitioners out there, natural health practitioners, that is, we don't take no for an answer. Just because something might look normal enough on your blood work does not mean you are healthy. In fact, if you have all these symptoms, clearly you are not. And then that last phase that you got yourself into, the exhaustive phase, this is where I was at myself at 21 years old when I first got into FDN. And this is not always true, but I find this to be common. When you start getting into that exhaustive phase, depending on how long you've been hanging around there, that is when the diagnoses start getting slapped on. Now, many people are like you, where they can't tell you exactly what's happening. But this is usually where people start stacking that stuff on, depending on what exactly they're going through. And it just gets ridiculous. It's like my story. I had 7 different diagnosed conditions at the age of 18. There's a certain point when you look at this, you're like, there is no way this makes sense. How could I have 7 unique health conditions and I'm only 18 years old? But really, that's just the body screaming for help. You know what I mean? That's all that's happening there. So if we support the body and actually give it the help it's asking for,
exactly,
we have seen that stuff get a lot better. I mean, I can't make medical claims for anyone else, but I can certainly say for myself that it went away. I don't meet the diagnostic criteria for that anymore, which is amazing. Jane, there was something that you said before that I wanted to go back to just for a moment. And honestly, it's actually because I was listening to you, so I forgot this part, but I always want to emphasize this anytime someone brings it up. You mentioned when you were taking those medications, you used these exact words, your intuition told you to stop. Now, again, this is not medical advice. I'm not telling anyone else to do this.
Yes.
However, Jane, we're in 461 interviews, 461 episodes, maybe 350 of those have been interviews. When I have asked this question to people, at least 325 or 330 out of the 350 have said something similar to that. I just knew. It was a gut feeling. It was an intuition. God gave me a sign. You know, if you're a believer, that's literally some of the things that people say. Yeah. So was it really that straightforward that you just knew one day, this doesn't make sense and I got to go do something else?
Well, you know, the word, who quoted, when you do the same thing and over and you expect different result. Is it Einstein?
Definition of insanity, yes.
Yeah, Einstein. So I have this thing, I don't know, when I was little, when I see patterns repeatedly 3 times, to me, it go by 3. And if I keep doing the same thing over and over, but it's not working, after the 3rd time, I said, okay, it's not working. Let's just do something else. So for me, I'm very observant. When I see a pattern that's not working, okay, something's got to change. So when I keep pounding that Aleve PM just to get me through the night to sleep, I said, okay, there's something wrong because I shouldn't be popping Aleve every freaking day. Sorry, every day. And I said, there's something wrong. And I just knew that it's not working anymore. It's not working. There's got to be something else. So that's when I started saying, you know what? It's not working. Just like the birth control, like, okay, this is not working because it's making me sicker. I don't understand why, but I knew that I had to stop it just because it was making my cyst get bigger and bigger. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And so, of course, my gynecologist put me as non-compliant patient. So I went to a different.
Oh my gosh.
And she denied that. I don't think acupuncture would actually make your ovarian cyst shrink. I'm like, well, the whatever my herbalist gave me helped me shrink. And now I don't have my cyst, and the ovarian cyst is gone now. I have no more pain. So so for me, it's intuition, and I see patterns, and I see doing the same thing over and over, and it's not working.
That's so cool. I hope, this is my hope for people. It's not me telling you to get off medication. I'm not saying any of that because every situation is different. Neither is Jane. She's not telling you that either. But what you just brought up to me is as much common sense as it is intuition. And by the way, I'm a believer in intuition. I'm just saying I think it's both of those things.
Yes.
You're being told that something's supposed to work. You're doing that thing. It's not working. That is common sense then that you should go search for something else and test all your options. So I'm really glad that you did. And I pray that your OBGYN stays healthy, but I also pray that they eventually randomly get to see this podcast one day. This is pretty cool data. That might be unlikely, but who knows?
Yeah.
You have something from the audience here. Let me read down on this. Hey, Victoria, thanks for being here. So Victoria said, it sounds like conventional doctors either don't know about this stuff or purposely dismiss it. What do you suggest when you know what's wrong with you, but you have to fight your PCP? And for those that are listening in different countries, that's a primary care physician. So your main doctor that you would go to, main family doctor, whatever. Wrong with you, but you have to fight with your PCP on it. If I can say one thing first while you think about this, I do not believe most are dismissing it on purpose, Victoria. And I'm not just saying this to be politically correct or diplomatic on this call. I genuinely do not believe that. If you look at most doctors, with all due respect, most of them don't look like they're sitting on the fountain of youth in the back office, right? You can, especially the older they are and the longer they've been doing it, you can kind of see how this career is just beating the heck out of them. I think that they're subjecting themselves and their families to the exact same things that they're asking us to do. And if you are doing the same thing for yourself and your family that you would do for your patients, you're not dismissing it. You truly do not know. So we need to always understand, and we've done entire podcasts on this. This is a good question. The Western medicine philosophy started because there was, and still are, to be fair, very real threats in our environment. In the early 1800s, an example, in America, if you had a child, there was a 50% chance that that child passed away by the age of 5 years old. I mean, really think about that for a second. 200 years ago, that's all we're talking. You have a kid, 50% chance the kid dies by 5 years old. We have basically stopped that because of Western medicine. So that's pretty cool. Absolutely. Not to mention all of the different diseases and bacterial infections and stuff that, yes, antibiotics can be nasty on our gut. I've been on 20 courses of them in my life. I don't recommend them if I don't have to take them, but they're also life-saving medications. So the problem is that same philosophy that literally saved parts of the human race and stopped us from having, 1 out of 2 kids die before the age of 5, they now apply that same philosophy to the chronic disease epidemic, except the chronic disease epidemic is not just some thing that comes from nature, right? That's what a lot of these bacterial things come from and all that stuff. This is coming from us, the stuff that we're doing as human beings, and that requires a whole different form of treatment and care. So with that said, I hope I gave you enough time to think here. So Jane, what would you suggest when you know what's wrong with you, but you have to fight your doctor on it?
I would say find a doctor who's an integrative practice. And there's several doctors out there that do integrative practice. I find them, they listen more, because I found a doctor, my primary care now is an integrative doctor, and he listens. I mean, he took his time. When I do my follow-up from my annual blood work just to see where numbers are, he takes his time. He took like 90 minutes to sit down and talk to me. That's rare to find, but there are doctors out there that will take their time and actually listen to you. And he actually would suggest, I didn't tell my doctor what I do. I'm just listening to what he suggested. And first thing he would say is, how's your diet? How's your sleep? And how's your rest? How often do you exercise? So that's when I knew, like, oh, this is a good doctor. He actually looked at lifestyle. And if there was, if the weight, for a person would have some weight issues, he was like, okay, well, let's talk to a nutritionist. I'll refer you to a nutritionist. And so he sees all different practice in his care. And I know that there are doctors out there that will actually listen, take time, but I say find an integrative doctor that will help and listen to you. Victoria.
Yes. I think that's a great answer. And that's what you need. And Victoria, I'm sorry if that is happening to you right now. I know that you probably meant that word loosely, but I wouldn't fight it. It's not a battle that you want to play. And again, I just remember this. This is my final thing I'll say on it. I wake up and remember that most people, not all, but most people are good people that are trying to do the best they can every day with the information that they have. And that's true for them as well. And this is my probably most unpopular opinion, because I feel like the functional people think I'm going too easy on them, but I genuinely believe this. You know what the reality is? If you've never dealt with chronic disease, and you went to school for over 8 years, 12 years for some of them, if you count residency and all that stuff. You spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. You worked your butt off in school. And let's be honest, you knew that you were probably pretty smart, because it's not just enough to work hard. You got to be smart. I think the average doctor has 120 IQ, which already puts them in like the 90th percentile. So you're smart as can be, hardworking as can be. You're willing to spend hundreds of thousands or go into debt. And then you go spend 12 years of your life on this. If I never had chronic disease and I did all those things, I got to be honest, I might be a little dismissive of other theories, because I'd be like, how the heck do you possibly know more than me? You almost need a shocking experience like what happens, unfortunately, to many of us to see outside of the system. So I try to give them some grace where I can.
Yeah.
Jane, let's talk about now how this has evolved for you, because I know that entrepreneurial spirit of yours is not going to die. Yes, you might have sold your business in 2020, but hopefully FDN has allowed a whole new thing to flourish for you. So what are you able to do nowadays for individuals with your FDN certification and the other things that you've done?
So what I do now with my practice, I have 3 different practices that I do. So I do functional health, and I also a body work therapist, and also personal training. I backed off in personal training. I do more functional movement because I have to assess the posture, the gait. And most of the patients that come see me is when orthopedics and physical therapists have exhausted everything that was going on. And so when I work with patients that have injuries, I see the person as a whole. I have like my questionnaires, what's going on. And the trauma are stored in our body. And from there, I run certain tests. So I would run their full hormone panel testing, GI stool sample, because what is causing the lower back pain? Is it really the lower back pain, or is it because when I see someone standing and had distended gut, they usually assign that there's something going on with your gut, and the lower back pain. So the nerves innervate in your lumbar spine if there's lower back pain. Are you pooping well? And if the person's not pooping well, then that could be a trigger to why you're having lower back pain. So I integrate all my practice in one. Some are just in compartment, just because some are not ready to do that yet. And I meet them halfway. What can I do? What can I help you? What is it their goals are? So in my FDN practice, I've grown a lot, and I've helped a lot of women, and I have some men too. I've grown, and they see that there's hope for them, because when I do the R&R, the results and recommendation, and they see the results and help correlate what was going on with their symptoms, and I said, oh, okay, so I'm not crazy. So there is something that I see that makes all sense now. Like, yes, it's like a puzzle. We have to play this detective and find a correlation of what was going on with them. And then from there, then we create the work in our lifestyle. We go slow. I don't go like 0 to 100 miles, just because applying all this, and there's certain protocols that need certain supplements. And so from there, I just take my time and just be caring for them. So yeah, so I've grown a lot, and I've helped a lot of women, and I just feel great that they're in the other side, that they're feeling a lot better.
Yeah, I love you brought this up twice, not only for yourself, but for your clients, that when they get the lab results back, they're actually like, oh my gosh, it's almost good in a certain sense. I think the proper word's probably validating, right?
Yes.
None of us want to see bad lab results, but I hope people get that when they hear what we're doing at FDN. When we get these lab results back, yes, they sometimes can be overwhelming just because there's so much stuff. But the cool thing about FDNs is we know what to do about it. There's no
Yeah.
lab result that we're going to get that it's just like, oh, hey, you're screwed. Good luck.
Yeah.
There's always something that can be done, and it just gives us one more clue to help this person get better faster and stay healthy longer. Because that's kind of the cool two things that we can do. Not only can we help sick people get well, we can help people that are trying to stay well longer, ideally for their lifetime.
Yes.
So I'd love to talk about this. Do you work both in person and online then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Except for the body work, that's in person, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I figured. So where are you still based out of Los Angeles right now?
No, we just moved to New Mexico, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I was in Pittsburgh a month ago, and now I'm here in New Mexico.
Very cool. I've only driven through there. It's like freaking awesome landscape in that area, just seeing the mountains and stuff. So
I just love it just because there's this sense of peace and calmness, and that's what I thrive now.
yes, now we're in the opposite boat.
Exactly.
So if you guys are in Santa Fe, definitely shout out Jane, especially for the bodywork side. What I'd like to talk about next is this is one of my favorite parts of the podcast. I'd like to spend some time now that you've gotten to work with people as an FDN over the last couple of years. I'd love for them to get to hear one of your coolest or proudest client testimonials. And I understand that we can't always use their real name. That's fine. There's a privacy thing. But are there any stories of clients that you've had that have they were coming to you at the end of their rope and you were able to be kind of that light at the end of the tunnel for them as FDN and the nervous system work was for you? So are there any client stories that stick out?
Oh, yeah. So I have a few. One, she came to me perimenopause, and her biggest struggle was insomnia. She was, it's kind of funny because it mirrors what was I going through. She was taking over-the-counter antihistamine just to get her through sleep. And she was just constantly tired, and she just could not get her sleep nailed down. She has the activity. This woman walks like 10 miles a day. She does, different sorts of activities, but her energy was being robbed by her sleep. And so as we went through running all the hormone panel, the GI map, and other tests that I ran, and she was taking a birth control pill because she was having ovarian pain. And I was like, well, this sounds familiar. I said, okay, I know how to tackle this. And so again, it's their body, it's their choice. And I said, like, the birth control is not doing you any good because that's why you're struggling with your sleep, because your estrogen and your progesterone is pretty much close to non-existent. And your cortisol, you're in that stage 2 compensatory. It's either going to go down to 3 or it might go back up to 1, that's what we're going to hope for. So we started working it. And the hardest part was the mindset, because I was pretty patient. I'm very patient. I said, when you're ready, we need to start weaning you off on that over-the-counter antihistamine medication slowly. Fast forward 4 months down the line, she got off the medication and now balancing all her hormones and learning to do the breath work at night, because that was her biggest anxiety, is like, well, am I going to be able to sleep? I'm scared because if I stop taking this medication, am I going to be able to sleep? And so the vagus nerve breath work, the 4-7-8 breath work, because you really have to work on that breath work. Just learn to let go and trust that your body will put you in that sleep stage. And so now we just had a follow-up last week, and she said, oh my God, I'm sleeping so much better. My energy is great. And she just feels much better. Like her mental state, the anxiety is not there. She's not in this fight or flight mode anymore. And so that was one of I felt really good. It took a lot of time, but I felt really good that she's finally sleeping with no medication whatsoever.
Nice. That's awesome. I never, ever will get tired of hearing these stories. It's not just for people like us that want to do this as work, guys. You can also do this for people who don't want to make this a career. We have plenty of people out there to help, and they can change too. So just excited to see what you'll do next. And that's my final question for you, actually. Well, kind of, other than where people can find you. So what's next for your business? You're in this different stage of life, like you just said. You went to Santa Fe, New Mexico. You're trying to chill things out a little bit now. So what does the next, several years look like for you with your FDN business? If you could wave a magic wand, are you looking to take on more clients? Do you like the flow that you have right now?
I like to take on more clients. So the next phase that I want to get into is to open a women's wellness retreat to incorporate the functional lab and actually apply the dress protocol, but they have 7 days with me to stay and really help them get to where they need to be and give them all these tools. And so, yeah, that's my goal in the near future. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You guys are a quiet bunch today. So listen, this is what I'm going to ask from the people watching. If you're not going to ask questions, that's fine. But Jane can't see that you're on. So if you did enjoy hearing from her today, at least drop a thank you in the chat, please. I'd really appreciate that. And by the way, this is the last time I'll say this, since we will not be on next week. If you're on audio, you wouldn't know the difference. But for the video folks and YouTube folks out there, we are doing Holistic Health Week again next week. It is for everyone. It's for people that are not FDNs, but just love functional healthcare. It's for FDN trainees, FDN grads. All of you guys are going to enjoy this because they're case studies where we go over the lab. So we have about 12 to 15 case studies for you next week. And that can be found at fdntraining.com/HHW25HDP, fdntraining.com/HHW25HDP. It's a free event. I'll be hosting all week. So come show up there and help boost my morale, because once I get 15 hours into hosting, I get pretty tired. So, all right, Jane, where can they find you, my friend, if they would like to work with you?
My website is holisticyou.life. That's my website, and you can reach me there. And then in my social media platform, Instagram is the same as my website at holisticyou.life. And with my Facebook page, it's MJC Velasco. And that's my page.
All right, here's my real last question. I lied before. This is our signature question to finish up the show. And I know we've talked about a variety of things today, so this is just a general health question. If we could give you a magic wand, you could wave it, and you could get all of our viewers and listeners to do just one thing for their health. So this means that you can get us to start doing one thing, or you can get us to stop doing one thing. What is the one thing Jane gets us to do? I have a guess of what it's going to be, but I'd still like to hear it.
Oh, that's tough because I could say 3, but I'll stick to 1. Breathe and slow down. Breathe and slow down.
Awesome. I did guess it right, by the way. So, Jane, thank you. You're an absolute pleasure. I hope that we get connected one day. I'm in Austin, Texas now, which actually, it's still hard for me to come.
Drive time.
We're this, but really not that far. And so I'd love to get connected in person at some point. But thank you very much for coming on today.